If you've gotten this far into the series and you've recognized that you feel a little bit of connection to each of the archetypes and you don't feel like you're able to fully say like, this is who I am, this video is for you. You're most likely a sovereign. Hi, I'm Naomi Olatayo, the brand priestess, and I guide founders, creators, and visionaries with multi-venture visions to align their brand universe and ecosystem with the vision that God has given them. And I activate their capacity needed to govern their respective realms, industries, and culture. If this video activates you in any way, make sure you click the link down below in the description box to join my newsletter. My newsletter is the place where I host my private transmissions for founders, creatives, and powerful leaders and celebrities to receive revelation-based guidance, governance codes, and strategic clarity for their multi-realm visions. This is part 6 out of 6, the final part for the governance archetypal system for multi-venture founders. You can access all 6 parts in my official playlist down below. And if you haven't watched part 5 yet, which was the High Priestess, it is linked down below as well. Anyways, let's get into this archetype. So, a sovereign does not fit into governance the way that other archetypes do. So, to recap, a king is the one who structures a realm. A queen creates a culture of a realm. The emperor structures structure across multiple realms, and an empress cultivates culture across multiple realms. The high priestess is a spiritual architecture, initiation, and atmosphere of realms. And she's the one who partners directly with those other governors to hold alignment with their governance. And then the sovereign is the one who holds all of these in a single embodied identity. I also like to say, there is duality. Like, if you're a king, you likely hold archetypes of a queen. If you're an emperor, you're automatically a king. You know what I mean? Like, there is overlap, but it's not about what you can relate to. It's just what is in your spiritual DNA. What do you have jurisdiction for? So a lot of people have jurisdiction to create the foundations of a realm, and a lot of people have jurisdiction to become the defining factor within the realm on an atmospheric, aesthetic level. Again, king and queen, emperor, empress, they're inverse of each other. You really can't have one without the other. And typically, if you are very structure heavy, like on the king, emperor side, you're going to have somebody in your life who will kind of balance out the polarity by being the queen or the empress. That's not what I'm talking about, though. What I'm talking about is somebody who holds all of those archetypes within one single embodied identity. And that type is extremely rare. That's people who are a sovereign are the ones who feel like a priestess, a prophet, a king, a queen, a strategist, all in one. And that's why it's always felt like honestly, these are people who can find solidarity in all of the human design archetypes and all of the Myers-Briggs archetypes. It's not because they just don't know themselves, it's because they are an entire court within one body. But yeah, it's rare. It's very rare. And I'm one of them. It's rare. I don't know if I've met someone who is a sovereign yet. I might have. I don't know yet. We'll have to think about it a little bit deeper, but it's rare. It's very rare. And it's rare for a reason. So remember when I was talking in the last video about how the high priestess is the one who initiates the kings, the queens, the governors, and the kings, the queens, and the sovereigns the kings, the queens, and the emperors and the empresses. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. The sovereign is the one. He's the one who typically does that. There's typically no one who's just the high priestess. I would say they usually always teeter on the line of sovereign. There aren't a lot of high priestesses in the governance sphere. And this is why it's so hard to explain the sovereign in traditional language, because you just have to know. You have to see it to really understand it, right? So their presence breaks categories, they create new lanes, and they form new structures of power simply by existing. Their existence is the blueprint, not just our identity, not just their actions. Like, their existence is the blueprint. And the reason why their existence becomes a blueprint for everybody is because they're at the top of the chain, essentially. Not in hierarchy. Not in hierarchy. I don't play hierarchy like that. When I say when I'm speaking like that, I'm talking about function or order. They are the top of the order because they are the ones who are birthing and initiating the queens and the kings and the emperors and empresses. They don't organize systems in a way a king or queen does. The systems organize around them. It's almost like when you walk into, what's a good example? Like when you walk into a foam pit or like a ball pit and the balls just kind of absorb around you. That's kind of what it looks like. Their authority does not come from lineage, industry, or institution. They're often the ones who are outside of systems for a period of time. But it really comes from a very specific lineage that we'll talk about too. So anyways, sovereigns are the ones who birth rulers, not followers. They awaken the kings, the queens, and the governors around them by simply having them in their presence. They're the kingmakers. They are the actual kingmakers, the queenmakers. They're the ones who initiate them. So when you think of who initiated Saul or David, the prophet who initiated those kings, he's a sovereign. You can only create from what you are. So the only way that you can create a king or initiate a king is if you're one yourself. You can only initiate You can only initiate a queen if you are one. So it's not a matter of rank. It's a matter of function and responsibility. Somebody who is just a leader within a system can't create a king or lead a king or give them advice because they aren't that. They don't have the DNA to give them that kind of information. But the sovereign's responsibility is to master all the realms of governance so that they can produce and lead and guide the kings and queens. That's why I say it's very rare to only just be a high priestess, because sometimes the high priestess may be the ones to initiate, but they aren't the ones to govern or lead the other governors. They're the ones who are side by side with them. But that's also why I said that high priestesses are rarely ever just high priestesses. Sovereigns are a force of alignment in human form. Just by being in their presence, in their atmosphere, there's clarity. It's like they are the center of gravity in every realm, sphere of influence, domain, room, it doesn't matter. When they are there, clarity forms. Where they walk, destiny activates. Where they speak, structures rearrange themselves. You can't become a sovereign, like I've been saying. You can't become any of the kinds of governance. This is just who you are. This is your function. It's in your DNA. Sovereigns specifically come from the lineage of Melchizedek. I don't know if you're familiar with that archetype in the Bible, but Melchizedek was somebody who has not come from any specific lineage, anything, you know what I mean? But when they were talking about Jesus, they said that he came from that line. And I'm not saying that you're Jesus. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is that there is a specific archetype of a person who is directly gestated and ordained by God to lead under the mirroring of Christ. There are people whose main archetype that they embody is Jesus. And not in the way that they're going to die and rise again, not that part, but the part of rulership. The way that Melchizedek ruled and how he interacted with other leaders, the same way that Jesus ruled and gave us access to have this level of governance, it's in that order. So there are a few tangible indicators of a sovereign archetype. The first one is that they can move across multiple worlds and be recognized in all of them. So there's business, spirituality, politics, culture, lifestyle, beauty. It doesn't matter where they are. They're all legible within it. And then their identity shapes reality around them. Like they don't ever fit into a place. They curate the space. Reality bends when they meet the sovereign. Wherever the sovereign is, reality bends in their place. If you're somebody like me, where God is very specific and peculiar about where you go and who you work with, that's why. one thing that God told me a long time ago was that I'm destructive. Backstory. So I remember I was watching this woman named Yielded Vessels Romania. I don't know her last name, on YouTube. I recommend her if you ever need somebody for coaching, spiritual coaching. But I remember she said in one of her videos, she said to ask God what he feels about you. And so I asked him, I said, God, how do you feel about me? He says, I feel that you're bold, that you're brave, that you're beautiful. And I was like, and you're courageous. And I was like, okay. And then he said, you're destructive too. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? Because when you hear destructive, you don't think of anything good. And for years, I've been trying to like just fit into just different boxes and places. I just couldn't understand myself. And then one day recently, I finally looked back on that moment and I was like, oh, I'm not destructive like in a negative way. I'm destructive in a neutral way. Because when you have reality bend to accommodate the magnitude of who you are, that's destructive. When you go to a place and no place can really hold you, or this is a typical example, like when you go to a workplace and everything just kind of falls apart around you because leadership starts questioning who's the leader here, and people start bypassing the leader to submit to you, things like that, that's destructive because you're rearranging the order of a realm by your nature. It's not something that you do, it's just what you are. You're a catalytic force of nature. And so imagine when you walk into an industry, into a space, what happens? Things rearrange themselves. And you may not have been able to get the experience of that now because you haven't lived long enough to see the effects of your presence. But I promise you, people can trace change back to you more often than not. They just may not give you the credit. Another defining factor is that they're both a ruler and an archetype. An oracle. So they bring practical strategy and spiritual insight. They're a paradigm leadership and also a cultural influencer simultaneously. Like there's immense duality within them. It's like the perfect marriage between the masculine and feminine forms of governance. Their presence alone initiates people. Like you just have to speak or be around them and then they begin to wake up to their purpose. Like they can't rest around you because they understand that they just came into contact with something divine. You literally are the presence of God. You don't just carry the presence of God, you are the presence of God. And people naturally have to rearrange around that. Sovereigns are also people who typically kind of lose their traditional relationship with God. So you've never been able to fit into traditional containers of intimacy with God, and you lost it, or you think you lost it, or you would say you went through a deconstruction, but it's not a deconstruction. You just moved from a typical father-son, father-daughter relationship into I am God. That's a topic for another day. And I'm not saying that in an egoic way either. If you know, you know. Another defining factor is that their life isn't linear. Like they don't climb ladders, they build worlds. They think in universes and mind maps. Like things are just never, you do this, do this, do this. It's not. It's a whole map, a whole web of things. And then lastly, they can hold paradox gracefully. They're both soft and sharp. They're both strategic and spiritual. They're both public and private. They're both an influencer and a governor, a ruler and a priestess. They can't exist as one because they're not. Their whole existence is a paradox, and that's intentional because they're supposed to govern governors. So here is what it looks like being a founder as a sovereign. You operate across multiple domains. You're just not bound to any. Your insights do not apply to one niche. They apply to several niches, and people organize themselves around it. You're meant to partner with rulers, celebrities, leaders, political figures, cultural catalysts, public figures, people with realms already tied to their name. You might be one of those kids who thought you're always going to go to Hollywood, but you didn't understand what in Hollywood you would do. It's not that you're necessarily supposed to thrive in Hollywood, or, you know what I mean? You're just supposed to partner with the governors of Hollywood. Same thing with all the other realms. And then your presence creates lineage, not just results. So your work doesn't just build brands. It restructures destinies and generations. You're the one who is the custodian of the rulers' generational destinies and impact. That's your job. It's my job. It's why I do what I do. And then lastly, your visibility is a part of your assignment. You have to be seen. The high priestess doesn't have to be seen. You have to be seen. The mark of your sovereignty is in your visibility, because you're supposed to carry the atmosphere of a collective on multiple spheres, and you need to be visible for that. But anyways, this has been part 6 of 6, the final part of my 6-part governance archetypal system for governors, those with multi-venture visions. It's been a long one. If you have identified with any of them, if this has given you that aha moment, if this has put words to something that you have intuitively understood about yourself for so long, you are meant to be here. Coming into contact with me is not accidental. You are meant to be here, and I'm so happy that you have been able to put words to who you are. And now that you know who you are, you have a responsibility to step into. If you haven't looked through the rest of my videos already, make sure that you do so. I specifically created this channel to act as almost like a self-paced course on sovereignty, on governance, on alignments, and multi-realm world building. If you have any questions, if you would like to share with me where you most identify, please let me know down below. I would love to continue the conversation with you in the comments. And if you've been watching me in these past 6 videos, or if you've been following me on any of my other socials and you just recognize like she's a missing piece in this vision that I've had for so long, and you know that our partnership is imminent, I am open to receiving partnerships at this time. DM me on Instagram or Threads at the brand priestess, or click the link in the description to apply to work with me with one of my already made containers. But anyways, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter down below. If you are a governor, that is a place that you need to go to be stewarded, guided, and activated into your full rulership, authority, and impact. So if you haven't subscribed, by now at this point, you need to be in there. If you say that I'm any of these archetypes, you need to be in that newsletter. But anyways, I'm so grateful that you have stayed to watch this video, and if you've stayed to watch all of the other 5 videos, thank you for watching. There is so much more to come. I've also just been getting to a point where I can accept who I am. This whole year has been a huge test of audacity and congruence, and there is something important in putting name to who you are. Names are so important. Names are something that gives evidence in the physical that there is an existence of you. That's why we all have names. You know how difficult it is to not be documented. We all know somebody, or we've seen somebody, whether online or in person, struggle with that. This video is your documentation. This is the place where you're coming into direct contact with your authority, with your influence, your leadership, and your identity, and just the general makeup of who you are. And it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. I will be creating more videos just about the general grief and growing pains that comes with being someone who operates within governance, because it's not easy and it's not fun. And I would say that 9 out of 10 times people would not choose this, but you can't change who you are. So stay around and continue to watch so that you won't feel so alone in this process of building and authority. But yeah, I thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video and in my newsletter. Bye.